got 3 pieces here, cut 16 inch, and my idea was to go ahead and weld those up. Now this is, damn magnet. Come on, loose. Anyway, my idea was to weld this bracket up like this, just like I did the front one, and each one of these is 16 inches long. But now I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll take one of these, make one of these 16 inches and one of these 24 inches so that it doesn't tip. But actually with this 16, and you got 2 and 2 on each side, which makes that 20 inches, which is actually fairly wide. So if I put those this direction, the center of the airplane going across this way instead of parallel with this center section, that'll actually make it not so tippy. So that might work out all right like that. Might go ahead and do that just like that then. And we got the back. It's very similar, and it's because I didn't need to make it out of that heavy of a material, but that's what I had, so that's what I made it out of. It's 2-inch box tubing, and I took 2 pieces of 1-inch angle iron and welded a piece of 1-inch box tubing in between it, and drilled it and bolted it into the tail wheel mount, and then I again took a piece of that 3/4 inch round stock and turned it down to fit inside of this square tubing. I found a piece of round tube that it would just slide into to pivot in there. And so I didn't need to turn that part of it down, that just slid in. I cut off 4-inch length of that round tube and then drilled a 1-inch hole through this square stock and slid that through there and welded it in. And then the round stock, the rod, where it comes, it's welded into this square stock, it comes in, sticks out about 2 inches. Well, I drilled the end of it in and tapped it for a 3/4 inch bolt. So we run a 3/4 inch bolt in there with a couple of fender washers, and that holds it on. Oh, it's tightened down now. So that works. 4 casters on that. Now, I didn't put a universal joint on this end. I thought having one on the other end would take up all of the differences in the motion of the fuselage. But what I didn't anticipate was this fuselage slopes up as it comes back this direction. So as this thing rolls over, with it sitting flat, it sits pretty good, but when you start rolling it over, it starts putting this in a bind. So I've got to come up with something here for some kind of a universal joint on this end to compensate for the bind that it's in now. So if I just loosen that up, it will still spin, but it winds up putting a twist on this mount right here. So we've got to come up with something for that, and I've got a couple ideas that I've been working on, and so we'll see if we can't come up with something there. But it's working. It's got the fuselage twisted. Now, a lot of guys, some of the ones that I've seen, they've run a tie strap between this front one and the rear one, so it keeps everything in line and moves it around. But I kind of like the ability of being able to move this around a little bit independently, the front end from the rear end. So you got quite a bit of leeway with that. You can kind of steer it. And I still need something to, right now I've got it between the bind on the rear end back there and the bolt back there tightened down on that. It's pretty much holding it at this angle. You can still turn it. It takes quite a bit to turn it. But if I put a universal back there, it'll spin easier. So that gets it up off the ground, and it'll make it a lot easier to work on underneath and turn it over to work on the top and stuff like that. So there it is. Back here we've got the rear turnstile portion of it. I built that yesterday, the stand. I've got a piece of 1-inch tubing in there, 3/4 inch ID, and then a piece of 3/4 inch solid stock in there, which is threaded on the end to accept this bolt which holds it in. And then the end of it I turned down a little bit smaller to fit in that 3/4 inch square stock. And we had that originally welded onto these angle iron brackets and bolted in underneath this tail wheel bracket here. But because the tail wheel bracket is tilted down and the fuselage is tilted up, it puts it at unusual angles when you rotate it. So I made this little universal joint, and basically what I did is I welded another piece of 1-inch box tubing in between two angles, and then I took another piece of 1-inch box tube and just drilled a hole through the ends of these angles down through that, and opposite or 90 degrees off from each other, and put a that's just an old number 3 bolt, AN3, and I don't know what length they are, 25s or something like that. That's stuff I dug out of the junk box for the pivot point pins. So anyway, that's on there, and these things can move independently, the front one and the back one, and this can rotate as necessary. So that's the back turnstile for the rotisserie, and that puts it up pretty high here for working on at a comfortable level. But we can rotate it when we need to work on something a little higher here. So that's pretty much done.